Welcome to the Creating Wealth Simplified podcast. My name is Lauren Wells, here with my co-host, Chris Seveny. We're committed to providing you with the knowledge required to build wealth through real estate investing. Tired of consuming content about real estate? Stuck in analysis paralysis? Ready to do your first deal? As a member of our community, you will learn how to go from consuming content to taking that first step into the world of real estate investing. Our show is not about getting rich quick, but about providing you with the knowledge you need to take action. Join us as we speak with experienced investors who share action tips on how to escape the corporate world, start a thriving side hustle in the world of real estate, and go beyond your W-2 or 401k. Welcome, everyone, to the Creating Wealth Simplified podcast, where each week we bring you education and information that will help you take your next step in building wealth through real estate. I'm your host, Lauren Wells, and joining me today is Jessica Larsen. Now, Jessica has been selling real estate on Cape Cod since 2012 and works tirelessly to represent her clients' best interests, guiding them each step of the way. She's also the president and co-owner of Cape Cod Cleaning Collaborative, which that was a mouthful. I had to practice that a few times, and 5-Star Vacation Rentals. The company has a client list in the hundreds, and the business gives her exceptional insider knowledge of the housing and investment property inventories on the Lower and Outer Cape. She is also a dedicated contributor to her community, serving on several boards on Cape Cod, and a mother of 3. She and her partner, Jeff, are devoted and involved parents. Jeff is a stay-at-home dad, and they are a great team working to navigate 3 kids through childhood. 1, I just love that. As a mom to 2, I love that you and your husband kind of have found this balance of what works for you guys. We're on the back of International Women's Day here, so bravo to you. And yeah.
Thank you. There can always be more women in the real estate. Can say that for sure.
Yes, it is. I know we've talked a little bit prior to the podcast about kind of your journey, how it started, and you have some unique things that you talked about with your cleaning collaborative and vacation rentals, but kind of like tell me how you got to where you are today.
Sure. So I actually started in cleaning in vacation rentals because I'm on Cape Cod. And I was young. This was many moons ago. I've been in vacation rentals like a full decade now. My daughter was young and somebody said to me, why don't you walk into this real estate office? They've got a lot of turnovers. You can get into cleaning. It's a great way to start making money. Yeah. And the minute I walked into the real estate office, I remember looking at the broker and I said, I'm going to be back with a real estate license. And 2 weeks later, I brought one back. And I was with him for about 8 years. And I started my cleaning company around his need for turnover cleaners. He had this huge inventory and we were able to answer emergency calls and we were able to set up regular service. And it was a really great way for me to build my sphere of influence because I did not know anyone. So it was a really great way to get started. And I think when you put love and passion into something, it naturally grows. So from there, we ended up in like residential cleaning, commercial cleaning. So that naturally kind of grew into its own little baby. And in the meantime, I stayed in real estate, expanded my sphere, eventually wanted to go out on my own with my broker's license. And now I've got these relationships. I've got clients. We're cleaning houses. I've got my own people coming in. How do I take all of that and make it a business that I can grow and scale and be effective in immediately? And the biggest shortcoming was like, how am I going to distribute my listings? I have cleaners, I have clients, but like nobody is sitting around in an office answering phones. How are we going to process stays? What tech are we going to use? Where are we going to list? Where am I going to get the cash to build a direct booking site? And then when I have it, how am I going to direct traffic there? So all of that was basically what led me to find that there is something called channel distribution tech. And it is something that is being widely used in the hotel motel space to take extra inventory and put on those platforms like Airbnb and VRBO and bookings.com. And there's a lot of different channel manager tech options. I mean, you can get something you're going to use in your office. You can get some that might sync to platforms. There's a lot of murkiness. And effectively, I found, and I still don't know how, a big believer in fate. So I kind of think I manifested it. But I found a company that was doing this in the hotel motel space. And I just shot them an email and I said, hey, I see that you're taking big hotel inventory, you're putting their name on it, you're throwing it onto the internet for them, you're processing all their stays. Could you do this for me? Like, I know I'm a teeny tiny fish, but this sounds great. And they called me back and we spent a whole year putting together what would it look like if they took my listings and put them out. We started with just one. We quickly grew to 5 in the first year, and all the tech we would have to put in between to get it all the way down to the cleaners. How do we have an open API so that the cleaning tasks are scheduled? How can I let go of certain tasks like I need a guest communication team and a reservation team? How do I implement all that so that I can grow my business? And that's what I was able to do. And now I have the privilege of going around and sharing this with other people in the space, because there are a lot of real estate agents out there who would take short-term rental listings and they just don't know how. They don't want to be answering Airbnb messages at 4 a.m. They don't know how to link with a cleaner. They don't know how to do that. At the same time, they have the kernel of something great. They have an amazing sphere of influence. So my goal is to help people diversify, basically, and capture that.
Yeah. So it seems like you lean pretty heavy into tech, which I mean, I think in an industry that is still a little bit behind in terms of their technology usage, I'm assuming would be like a differentiator in that sets you apart from your competition.
Yeah. Something as simple as automated door locks, which we got rid of keys. My cleaning company 8 years ago told everybody that we cleaned for, I'm sorry, we can't launch with keys anymore. It's a logistical nightmare. You can put it in a lockbox, but you're going to have something. And by now, most of our partners and everybody under management has locks where we can swap the codes out and the guests get unique stays. And this is like basic tech, right? And they actually get a checkout code. And so when they check out, the unit shows as ready to clean in our dashboard. So the cleaners, where we used to, 7 a.m., we would be driving around houses like, who got out? So we can start early and flip things. Now we have this dashboard in live time where we can get the information of this party has left from the door. So this stuff saves us so much time and is so basic at this point.
Yeah.
And kind of what the young people seem to be calling a vacation rental tech stack. That's effectively where I find myself, is helping other people implement a tech stack. Because if you're going to grow and scale a business like this, you need to really focus your efforts on growing and scaling your portfolio. You do not want to be in the day-to-day muck of guest management.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Once you were able to get this tech stack kind of fine-tuned, can you talk about the impact on your business? And one, I'm assuming your time, being able to do more of the business growth versus the in the weeds. But like, how did that correlate to like rentals under management? And did you see a big growth?
So we did. And we also saw was that we were able to be more selective. So growth isn't always volume. Sometimes it's, can we take the clients we already have and do more with them, offer a better service, create more, rather than going out and trying to get more clients. That was a huge turning point for us, where we could go to some of the clients we were doing vacation rental turnovers for and say, hey, we're already in your house. For a small percentage more, we can do the whole thing for you. And since it's in-house, it's hands-off. From a real estate perspective, what most agents want to stay out of that day-to-day muck of the cleaning. Yeah. So I advise them to find a strategic partnership. That's when they need to find a cleaner and have a conversation about, okay, I'm going to bring us listings. You're going to bring us housekeeping. For me, it made sense to grow my housekeeping company because that was where I started. So for really ambitious people, there's 2 different sources of revenue right there. And that can really insulate you, because there was a minute when vacation rentals froze during COVID. Nobody knew what to do, and we all just froze. And I can tell you that we kicked it into gear with our cleaning company, and we kept everybody on staff, and we operated through that. And the minute we could get our vacation rental business back up, we did. And we ended up housing a lot of people from the city. So it enables you to pivot a little bit and stay where you need to be to keep the whole picture.
So here's a question, because I think that a lot of people are looking to get involved in real estate, start their own business. And I think when people think, oh, short-term rentals, they think I have to own them all and manage them all myself to have some passive income and build a profit. But you really capitalize on a need. And I just think it shows like find the need in the industry and build around that. What would you say, like if you were to stop growing your business today, which knowing you, I'm assuming that's not happening. But if you were to stop today and just manage what you have and say, like, how many hours do you feel like you would be putting in a week to manage what you have now?
So I put in more than I have to, and I know that. By that, I mean, I don't have a strategic cleaning partnership right now. I do have a company, but I'm pretty involved in that. And that's a choice that I currently make.
Yeah.
If you removed that, if you outsourced your cleaning and let somebody else do that, not much. The work is done up front when we get a listing, right? It's getting the owner on, you got to clean it. You got to get stills. We want a 3D tour for everybody. We've got to order the linens for the beds, and we do automated amenities through Get Sojo, which is really fun. Little shout out to them. So we do automated amenities, but we got to get that in the queue. So it takes about 2 weeks of everybody being on time to get the listing completely ready to go live like that. And from there, not much, because all of the inquiries are being answered by my guest communication team, which comes with my channel manager, Jetstream. So it's white label, and they answer all of my inquiries as 5-star rentals, which is who I am. And they do all of that. So they only call me when they need me. So if there is, for example, a beeping fire detector in the house and the guest can't reach it, there is nothing the guest team can do about that. They're going to pick up the phone and call me. If somebody calls them up because they might have a simple question, maybe it's a message like, is it a drip coffee machine or a Keurig? Then they can go in the 3D tour that I took at the beginning and look to answer the question without calling me about it. So the longer you've had a listing and the longer they've known you, the more reactive they are, obviously.
Yeah.
And what I can say is people tend to think of them as being a call center, and they're not. Jetstream is an employee-owned company, and the guest communication team are full of the kindest, smartest, nicest individuals who also happen to be like multilingual. So they're just absolutely amazing. And they have been doing all of my communications with my guests for 2 years now. And I would never go back because I have managed listings in the middle of the night long enough to have done that. So yeah, zero regrets there.
Yeah, I love that. But again, it just kind of shows like, okay, if you're looking to get into real estate, you can do it without buying 4 or 5 short-term rentals. You can do it by finding the problem, I guess, or pain point and serving that and still build a life basically around your terms.
100%. And the other thing for real estate agents in particular, use your colleagues. If this is something you want to get into, tell them I'm doing vacation rentals. And if they get a listing, give them a revenue forecast. Help them understand what kind of an asset that could be as a short-term rental, because then if they find that buyer, they're going to bring it back to you, right? And so here on Cape Cod, just to take this to one more level, even though I operate, which I do, and I've partnered with this company, other agents who used to bring me listings, I help them keep their listings and do their distribution. And then I anchor my cleaning company to it. So we, in turn, all of their listing goes right into my cleaning company. And so in that way, even though we're competing, we're really working together and we're leveraging the best employees on the Cape.
We hope you're enjoying this episode of Creating Wealth Simplified. We wanted to take a moment and tell you more about our passive income fund at 7E, which is open to both accredited and non-accredited investors. Our latest offering targets an 8% annual return distributed monthly, with the ability to potentially achieve a greater return through our bonus share program. If you'd like more information, reach out to us at invest@70investments.com to learn more. Thank you.
I actually used to work at a software company that did property management software, and we would get a ton of calls about short-term rentals. It's not something this software handled. I still don't think they do, but it was something that I feel like there was a need for. And this was back in like 2010, 11, 12, maybe. And now I still don't think there's not a ton of market saturation there. Like there's still a ton of room for growth. Mm-hmm. And I think people who have technology, and this is just something I believe in any industry, that technology will set you apart. Like you said, you have that call center. So there is, or not call center, that customer support kind of team that is human, that interaction. It's not kind of an automated bot you're speaking with, but I think that having the technology and the way for them to communicate back and forth is really going to set people apart in any business, specifically real estate though. One thing, and I'm going to go a step further and say there's all this talk about AI, and I was at a conference this week and there was a private investor who was saying, that if he looks at a company and they're not using AI, he like puts them at the bottom of the pile. While I personally think that's a little aggressive for where we're at right now with AI, I have to ask, like, is that something you're using? Yes, no. If not, why not?
So we're using a lot of automation and we're using a lot of open API. You're specifically asking about like a chat AI?
Yeah, like chat GPT.
Yeah.
Like
so
that.
Personally, I'm staying out of that because that would be a time vortex for me. I do know that our guest communication team is experimenting with it. I do know that they're testing it out. They're definitely testing it out for the content of the listings because they do all the writing of the content.
Yeah.
So I know that it's being used on that level. We are not the point, and nor do I think we should be. It would make me uncomfortable if we were using the AI all the time for example, in place of the people. I'll take the people any day of the week. And because I'm sure there will come a day when I would be more comfortable with it. But for me personally, it's your name that's on this, and I'm not ready to give that to it. AI bot quite yet.
I agree. I mean, I think that whenever someone is using Chat GPT, it's a great like jumping off point.
Yes.
But I can't tell you, I get so many LinkedIn messages like daily, and I can kind of tell which ones are, or I see LinkedIn posts and I'm like, that doesn't sound like personality. That sounds like someone else wrote it and it's trying to sound super sophisticated or a certain way. So I always say, if you're going to use something like a Chat GPT, take it. It's a great starting point if you're like stuck or having like writer's block, but use it to then like add your own flavor, your own personality, your own voice to it. And I think that's just where it is today. Yes, maybe 5 years from now, maybe I'll change my mind, or maybe the way it's moving, apparently someone would probably say a year from now. But right now I'm in agreement with you. I'm not quite there yet to say it could take the place of someone who's emailing on my behalf or reaching out to an investor on my behalf. But I'm also very much a people person. So I believe in that personal touch, so to speak. So tell me a little bit more about when you're working with someone who's interested in, comes to you and says, hey, I love what you're doing. I'd love to implement this technology in my business so I can take on short-term rentals. What does that conversation look like?
It's a really personal conversation. And I say that because I feel like in the past 2 years, as I've been working with the tech company, a lot of times we're like, how can we automate this conversation? The truth is everybody's needs are different. Everybody's market is different. Everybody's business is different. So kind of understanding what it is they're trying to do is primary. And then how can we get them there? So sometimes we hear from agents or managers when they have like 5 properties, because if you've got 5 properties and no automation happening, you're feeling it. If you haven't implemented text and door locks and all that stuff, you are really going to be feeling it at about 5 properties. So sometimes we hear from people around then and they just want help cleaning up an existing operation. Other times it's okay, you've got this business, you've got these relationships. On Cape Cod, the amount of houses that are closed seasonally here, and we keep them open year round with dynamic pricing. So can you imagine a whole asset just sitting closed? It makes my heart bleed. So other agents, who do you know if you're in a market where you're heavily seasonal, could you help somebody turn that asset into a revenue stream for them? Especially if it's just sitting empty. And you would be surprised at how many houses that sit empty for the year. So it's really just about figuring out what it is they want to do and then how can we make it work. And sometimes it's them implementing this tech. Sometimes we get creative for smaller PMs and they bounce off of mine. So instead of getting their own task management software, we put their property in because it's not customer facing and we hook their cleaner in wherever they are. And we kind of bounce off of what I built because it's easier for them. So it just depends on how involved they want to be. But I can tell you that passive residual income, rental income is not a bad thing when you're in real estate and sales, because it can be very like this and you have to be able to weather the storm. And it is really nice to have something that is more consistent than that. The other thing is it's a great top of mind tool. So you're working with clients, right? I mean, can you imagine if you're putting a deposit into their bank account every time there's a stay and they see your name right on their bank statement next to that deposit, they're going to come to you when it's time to sell that asset. There's this idea of nurturing a bigger relationship. And depending on the laws in any area, you can actually virtually manage. So you've got a client who might own houses where you are, but you find out they have multiple houses. Maybe they like to travel. So you could actually really expand outside of your market in some cases.
I love that. And are most of the people who I'd say come to you to either help not manage their unit, but say wanting to grow a short-term rental business, they have a real estate background? Have you worked with people who are kind of like you? They got their license and they're like, okay, I'm going to do this. They're newer to the industry, but they have drive. Are those people you've worked with? Have you helped people implement outside of the Cape?
Yes. So I have a couple partners across the US now, which is really exciting. I have a little geo going up in Wisconsin and Minnesota, and they're not all realtors. I will say that the National Association of Realtors has actually featured my story in this text. They're starting to hear me because I'm like, if agents don't start embracing this technology the way that we do in sales, and we should be doing this in long-term rentals, short-term rentals, commercial leasing, it's a lot more than just residential sales. And so I would like to see more support here. Why do I have to go to the internet and find it on Google? So the more real estate agents that can kind of embrace this and keep the professionalism, we're the pros. You can't be hacking it along when you've got a real estate license. So real estate agents are great. I think their biggest fear is the property management piece. What if this becomes a time vortex? I don't want to clean. And so that gets down into having a real conversation about finding, if you're going to get into this business, you need a cleaning partner. And you can do that very successfully where everybody stays in their lane.
When you were kind of starting to utilize tech, or I guess before, did you run into any speed bumps along the way or things you wish you could have done differently or you would do differently?
No, I mean, so we've never really implemented tech that we hated. Once we got used to it, we've kept everything we've implemented. Some houses we go deeper and we do temperature controls and those might have cameras. And so some houses go all out. Some houses we just do the door locks and the noise monitors. It sort of depends on the nature of the house and other things. But no, it's all positive. So much so that when I take on a full managed listing, we actually buy the lock. So this isn't something, it's part of our agreement. We're going to put it on your door. I bring all the tech in with me. There are managers out there that charge owners for the tech because, of course, you put the lock on the door and they're going to own it. But it's really hard to get rid of me when you install my tech. You know what I mean? So it makes our flow a lot easier and our owners are very hands-off. So vacation rentals doesn't feel burdensome to them.
Yeah. If you were to give, I guess, advice to people who are listening, they might be a realtor, they've thought about the management side of it, but like you said, they're kind of overwhelmed by all that could entail. What would you say to them?
Yeah. So, I would love to meet with them. So I would say they're welcome to book a time to talk to me. And I keep a Calendly parked at bookwithjessica.com. Really easy to remember. So I would welcome this conversation with anyone because short-term rental dorks can talk about it all day. So I'd love to hear about it. And two, I would say that you really focus on your strategic partnerships. So you really think about what it is you would want to do with that business, how involved you want to be. And then you begin to put the pieces into place. And from there, it's doing a lot of the same things that real estate agents are already doing. We know how to create relationships and network and lead drive. I think that really good agents in some of those branches, long-term rentals, commercial rentals, we get really good at working with other agents. So you want to view other agents as your friends because not many of them are in rentals. So they're going to have referrals for you. So that's what I would say is really kind of taking a look at it and figuring out what it is you want to do. And then finding the right partnerships and understanding that when you do find a cleaner, you're going to need to pay them well. That's half the business. It might even be a little more than half the business. So if you're not going to start a cleaning company, which isn't for everybody, you are going to have to figure out how to factor in paying that person fairly if you want them to take the phone call in the middle.
Love that. So, okay, you said book with Jessica. So I was just going to ask if people did want to reach out to you, where can they find you? Is it just the bookwithjessica.com? And we'll have all these added in the show notes as well. But if people did want to reach out, learn a bit more and maybe work with you, how would they do that?
Yeah, that's probably the best way is to start with a conversation. I have started some productivity groups within Jetstream. So when we take on new partners everywhere, we do meet together currently once a month to mastermind. Some of those partners, I meet with them more frequently. It just depends because as I said at the beginning, when you're learning, there's more work. And if you do it right up front, you don't have to do it again. So it's worth the time and energy to do it right the first time. But the best way to reach me is totally to book a time. I'm also on the Facebook because I'm old. So that's about what I can manage is Facebook. And I am on LinkedIn, but it's probably not the best way to reach out to me because, as you said, those AI bots have sort of killed that one for me.
Yeah, I know.
Very hard to wade through who's reaching out authentically and who's not. And I'm always ready for a one-to-one, but
yeah, no, for sure. Well, thank you, Jessica, so much for joining us today and everyone listening to this episode of the CWS podcast. If you enjoyed the show, share it with a friend, subscribe, or leave us a review. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining Lauren and I on this episode of the Creating Wealth Simplified podcast. Each week, we bring you expert education, experience, and information in a digestible format to help you identify investment opportunities so you can build wealth through real estate and take action toward your financial goals. Enjoy the show, share with a friend, or subscribe to the show and leave us a review.